Next up, let's talk about data formats and categories. So for this demo, we're going to spend some time in the data view, and we're going to focus on doing two things. First, we're going to customize some data formats, which we'll find in the column tools menu in the data view. These options are also accessible in the properties pane in the model view as well, so I'll show you both options. And we'll also explore data categories. And these are used for special fields like geospatial fields, URLs, or even barcodes. And it's very common to use these to help Power BI accurately map your location-based fields. Things like addresses, countries, cities, latitude, longitude coordinates, zip codes, etc. Now, one common question and point of confusion is that when we first load our data with Power Query and we go through our ETL steps in the query editor, part of that process typically involves defining data types. So why do we need to define data formats here in the Power BI front end as well? The difference is that data types essentially define how data is stored, whereas data formats determine how that data gets displayed to users in the front end. So there's a subtle distinction between the two, and that's why sometimes your data may look a little bit different in the query editor versus the Power BI front end. So we're going to jump into Power BI, we'll open up our AdventureWorks report, and we'll practice customizing some of our data formats and also exploring a few different data categories as well. All right, so here I am in the model view of our AdventureWorks report. Like I said, you can access these options, both formats and categories, from the model view in the properties pane. So let's go ahead and select a field like date from our calendar lookup. If we expand our properties pane and scroll down, you'll see the data type here and also a data format option. And if we drill into advanced, that's where we'll find the data category option as well. So you can customize those fields right here in the properties pane. I don't find it very user-friendly. I actually prefer to make these updates in the data view instead. So there are a few updates I'd like to make here. First, I want to update all of our dates, which have these very long forms with the weekday, the full date, the year. I'd like to change this to a shorter, more concise format. So we'll go through and update all of our date fields in the model. I'd like to check our currency fields as well. And then we have a couple fields in our territory table, country and continent, that we can apply some categories to wrap things up. So let's go ahead and start here in our calendar table and reformat all of these long date formats. So I'm going to select the column. Here I've got that contextual column tools menu that pops up. You can see by default we've got that long date format applied. I'd like to just switch this to the short date. So with just one click, that will update. And I'm going to go ahead and go through all of these different long date columns, like start of week, start of month, start of quarter, and start of year. And that should clean up things nicely. So there we go. Our calendar table looks good. We also have some date columns in our sales and returns tables. So let's go through that exact same process here for order date and for stock date. And then I believe the only other one is in returns with return date. And note this little pop-up here that kind of emphasizes what I said, which is that this format changes how these values are displayed, but doesn't impact how they're actually stored. So that's all of our date fields. Next up, I want to look at some of our currency fields, which only live in our product lookup table. And we've got to scroll all the way on the right, and you'll see the product cost, product price, and discount price. You see these are formatted as currency, but they have a whole bunch of decimal spots. I want to limit that to 2. So let's go ahead and select that product cost. Currency looks good. And we should be able to change the decimal places manually to 2. There we go. So same thing with product price. Let's set it to 2 decimal places. And discount price. All right, so dates and currencies look good. I think that's all the formatting adjustments I need to make. Last update is to assign some categories to those fields in our territory lookup table. So let's jump in there. I really want to focus on country and continent specifically. So let's start with our country field. And here's our data category option right here. And I'm going to scroll down and find country. Now note, this first option, this is county, which is different. This is not a country, this is a county. I've made this mistake so many times. We get so many questions about this. Make sure you read closely because country with an R is right down here. So let's go ahead and select that. Looks good. And then continent has its own category as well. There's not much I can do with these regions because these are kind of custom defined regions as opposed to something that Power BI can identify and map for us. Last thing to call out here, if we jump back to our model view, now that these have geospatial categories assigned to them, you can see this globe icon appear as a nice little visual indicator. So pretty simple. That's all we need to do for now, but that's your quick recap of how to customize data formats and categories inside the Power BI front end.